Welcome back, brothers and sisters, for another day of the commemoration of Passion Week. We are at the end. Today is the final day. If you guys have been following along, you know that this year we're doing things a little bit differently. We're not just sitting back and reading the passages, but we're actively participating in it. And the way we're doing that is by becoming the biblical passages that we encounter. Now, if you've saw the video from yesterday, you know that we are already assigned a character, and today's character is a bit different because Monday, Thursday, we were becoming the biblical passages, the biblical characters. But today, the main character is Christ. We can't really be Christ. So what we're doing is we're going to play the actor playing Christ, right? So we're going to see everything from the vantage point of Christ, but we can't really become Christ. So we're going to be the actor playing the role of Christ. There's a lot of things to cover today, but again, there's not much to say. There's just a lot of things to cover, but there's not much things to say because, by now, if you don't get it, you don't really get it. And this is not really the time for sermons. This is not the time for anything else. It's just kind of to take everything in. And a lot of things happens. So let's go and cover it. Again, just to cover everything. Part one is to do the readings. Make sure you're following along in the readings. There's a lot of them. Part two is the reflection. So try to take time. I know it's busy. If you're at church, if you're following the YOTC phone calls, whatever your game plan is for today, make sure that you take time to reflect on the Passion of Christ. And part three is lights, camera, action. It's time to play out the role. Again, today we cannot be Christ, but we're going to be like Christ. We're going to be the actor playing the role of Christ. So with that being said, we already have our character. We know what we're supposed to do, but I just wanted to take time to cover some of the readings. If you've been at church on a Good Friday, you probably have noticed the hours. There are different reading hours. They will say something like the third hour reading, the first hour reading, and today I'm just gonna kind of cover them really fast, and say at this hour this is what we should focus on. So the first hour, that's like if you're in Ethiopia, I don't have to tell you what that means. But if you're in the West, you're like, what's the first hour? The first hour is 7 a.m. That's what we consider 7 a.m. So at 7 a.m., the things that are commemorated is the council that's held for Christ with Pilate. And Pilate, he finds nothing wrong with Christ. So he sends him over to the king of the Jews, who is, of course, Herod, in order to have a trial there. Hopefully Herod could do something with him. So he goes over to Herod, and this guy is just rude. He's the guy that you won't invite to your house. He's the guy that you avoid at work. He's the guy that you can't stand. He's just full of himself. He thinks he knows everything. He's just a jerk. I mean, this guy is just full of it. So he approaches Christ and he starts mocking him. You're the king of the Jews? You're the king of the world? It's you? And he acts so ignorant. And 7 a.m. is the time to think about these things. Now, again, your role is not to become Christ, but to be the actor of Christ. So look at Herod from the vantage point of Christ, from the eyes of Christ's perspective. And look at Herod. What do you see? Look carefully. If you look carefully, you see yourself. Each one of us is Herod. Look carefully. What you discover is each time that we commit sin, even though we say we've accepted Christ, we're questioning the power of Christ. Each time that we say we've come back to the church, but then fight among our brothers and sisters, we're questioning his mercy. We're testing it. You are Christ. Let's see what you're going to do. All right, I'm going to up my sin this time to see how much I can get away with, right? So we're mocking him in his face. That's what we're doing. That's the first hour, 7 a.m. 7 a.m. Then what we call the third hour is 9 a.m. So you could do the math, it would be 9 a.m. And this is when Christ is taken back to Pilate, and then Pilate is again kind of pressed to do something. So he's supposed to do something at this point. Now Pilate doesn't find anything wrong with Christ, and it's amazing if you guys read Christ is answering Pilate, but he doesn't answer Herod. Herod is just like, he doesn't need answers. But Pilate, like we learn later on, he does become a saint. He becomes a martyr for Christianity according to the teachings of the church. He's really interested to learn, but yet he has to carry out the law. So one of the things they do is, as you guys know, they beat Christ. They beat him. They whip him. This is like a heavy whip. It's not just once or twice. They beat him repeatedly. They beat him repeatedly. Again, this is like, at this point, this is when we start doing like the Sigdet, right? And then, like, of course, we've been doing it all week, but like, keep in mind, we're talking about the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Like Christ, he could have called the whole thing off. Like, enough is enough. Like, I can't take it anymore, right? Like cut everyone, production off, right? Like, he could have done that, but he did. He kept going. Don't forget, he's the divine nature and the human nature united into one. That is Christ. That's who we call Christ. His two natures united into, that's what we call Tawahado. So as a man, he was feeling this pain, and as God, he could have stopped it. His divine nature could have stopped the whole thing, but he didn't. So when we are acting out this scene, when you're doing Sigdet, remember, when you get tired, like, there's going to be a point where you're going to say, look, I can't do any more Sigdet. I have to stop. Like, I just can't do any more. Physically, I can't do anything. Christ came to that point and still kept going. And he did it for the name of love. He did it so that you and I would be free. He didn't do it for himself. He did it for us. So the point of the Sigdet, again, is to really make us understand, like, the pain. Wow, like, I'm this tired. I really want to stop. I'm sure Christ got to this point, but he kept going. What was it? And I'm not saying don't stop doing Sigdet all day. Like, when you get tired, you're going to stop. But just understand that thought process of, like, everybody has a breaking point. And then when we get there, because no one is, like, putting a gun to our head, we're going to stop. But Christ kept going. And that is a story that's amazing. That's what we think about at the 9th hour. The 12th hour. The crucifixion. That's, at the 6th hour, crucifixion. That's 12 p.m. Crucifixion. Oftentimes, you'll see people crying. Oftentimes, you'll see people full of tears and getting emotional. I'm here to tell you, dear brothers and sisters, do you not dare to cry for Christ. This is not the time to cry for Christ. Christ doesn't need our tears. He doesn't want our tears. I'll give you an analogy. Imagine if you're sick and you're in bed. And like you have like one of the worst diseases in the world and you're about to die. And the doctor spends years coming up with the right medicine that will heal you. And he finally comes into your room and says, right before you're about to die, look, this took me like years and years and years to make. Here is your medicine. All you got to do is take it. You're like, I'll come back in a moment. He leaves. And you pick up the medicine, but like you drop it on the floor. When you go to pick it up, you step on it and you ruin the medicine altogether. And then when the doctor comes back, you cry to the doctor and say, I'm so sorry. I know you spent years making this medicine, but I dropped it and then I stepped on it and now the medicine is ruined. The doctor's going to look at you like, why are you crying to me? Like, why are you telling me this? You're about to die. Like, cry for yourself. Like, cry for yourself. Why are you telling me about like I spent a good amount of time on it. What a shame. But you're about to die. This is serious for you. And this is the same thing on the cross. Like, when we cry, we shouldn't be crying for Christ. We should be crying for ourselves. It's because he loved me that he was on the cross, that he endured all this pain. That's why I should cry. It's because even though he was on the cross and he died for me, I continue to sin. That's why I should cry. It's not because Christ was on the cross. What a shame. But the real thing is the fact that we continue to deny him. And he continues to love us. 6th hour. is the crucifixion. 9th hour, or 3 p.m., is the death. There's not much we could say. We just take it in. It's not time to talk. It's not time for sermons. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, is on the cross. And at 3 p.m., we think about his death. At the 11th hour, or 5 p.m., he's taken down from the cross. At 12th hour, or 6 p.m., he's buried. This is the readings for today. And take time to take it all in. Hopefully we'll see each other again soon. Let's